Today, on Be Something Wonderful, manifest astonishing success in every area of your life. This works. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, good morning and welcome back to the studios of Be Something Wonderful. Big video for you this morning. Here's the question. Tom, I seem to manifest wonderful things and then nothing. And then in one area of my life, but then not another, right? Feels like the law is limited. Trying to find the process that just gives me everything whenever I ask for it. Right? We talked about this idea, not enough money, or I want to change something in my physical appearance, or I have a physical condition, right? Chronic or even serious, right? Or a third party shows up, right? One of you said, when I look at my bank account, it seems delusional. That money will just appear the next morning by imagining it and affirming it the night before, right? All of these ideas came up. Yeah, of course it will, because you're looking through that idea of delusion or being delusional. Right? This is powerful because I want you to really recognize here that you're still, even here, as you said, I manifest some wonderful things, and that I'm looking for the process that gives me everything whenever I asked. You're still putting the power out there into the processes, into the law, right? Into something that you seem to apply in practice, right? I want to hit this today like we never have before. Remember, what is the real secret to all of this? You. You as the process. You as the law. You as reality. Every time you look out there to the world, to others, to processes, to techniques, to be fulfilled, to change your life, to manifest and create what you want, you create attachment to the reality or experience of seeking. That's the definition of attachment. You're attached to seeking it in the conditions, in the processes, in the law of assumption or the law of being, right? But never being and having it. That's the pure definition of attachment, right? Remember, the first step and really only step is recognizing who you are and what you have as source. Who and what you have as source. You're moving from the vibration or the frequency of seeking and looking out there into the processes to being and having, to being the source or the God frequency of everything you want. It's the frequency of God, the frequency of already being and having it all. I want to show this today. In a video that I did a while back now, that's a pretty popular video. I think it was called The Law of Divine Increase. I talked about the widow's oil, the story in the Bible. I'm going to touch on that today because it really applies to this idea to move from the idea of seeker to source, but not just source or supplier of all you need, but actually being the supply itself, being the substance itself of everything that you want to be and have. This is powerful. Remember, the law of attachment is not about not wanting what you want or what you want to be and have. It's not about giving that up. It's not about not wanting what you want to be or not wanting what you want to have. What's it about then? It's about recognizing yourself as I am awareness, as source of everything you want and desire, but not just source and supplier, but the actual supply itself, the actual substance itself. Your I am awareness of being is not only the supplier or source of everything you want to be and have, but it is the supply or substance of everything you want to be and have. It's God. God is the substance, not just the supplier. Not just the source, but the supply itself. You go from seeker to source to actually being the substance. Right? Scripture talks about faith being the substance of things hoped for. It's the actual substance, absolute faith of I am, that awareness of being. This is powerful. In the widow's oil, if you remember, Neville Goddard talks about this story. And I want to really hit on this idea because it demonstrates this idea that you practice and you apply the law of being, the law of assumption, the law of I am, right? You practice and apply the processes and techniques while still being in awe of it. In other words, it still feels like something that is doing it for you, that the law or the processes are creating your reality. You're still in awe of it, right? At the same time, you're fearing that if I don't practice or apply it correctly, I won't get what I want. The widow's oil demonstrates this perfectly. I want to show this to you. Do you see this? Right? You practice and apply it, but you're still in awe of it. Still thinking it's just some great power outside of you, fearing that if I don't quite do it right, if I don't imagine the right way, affirm the right way, do what those thousands of YouTube coaches tell me to do, exactly, I won't get what I want. And you create that fear of that, right? You go all in. You assume the new identity and reality of your wish fulfilled, right? You detach or you're dying to the old you or the old reality. But then you cry out when you see circumstances that are contrary or things not appearing or appearing differently in your conditions around you. It's not working. Something is wrong. As the debt piles up, as the bank account runs low, as third parties show up with your specific person, as obstacles appear, as your appearances seem to get worse, the physical conditions within your body, everything seems to be getting worse, right? You cry out, just like the widow. The widow in the story, remember, the widow represents that attached, 3D focused personality that identifies with separation and loss, right? The widow, the idea of loss, right, and separation. It's the fear or thought of not getting what you want or ending up with what you don't want. That's what the widow represents, right? You're widowed from your wish fulfilled, right? You're widowed from everything you want. You've lost contact or connection with your source or supply. That's what the widow represents in this story, right? Remember, her husband died, so she lost contact with her supply or source. This is what it says in 2 Kings 4:1. Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord. Remember, the idea of fearing the Lord in Scripture means being in awe of. That's the true meaning behind it, right? What they mean by fearing the Lord. You're in awe of the Lord. You fear that if you don't follow the law correctly, if you don't implement those processes the right way, then you fear the Lord or the Lord. Or the law or the Lord. Remember in the Old Testament, Lord in capital letters is the law. So I call it the Lord or the law or Lord, right? But it's the Lord or the law. And you're in awe of it. That's what it's saying here. Your servant, my husband's dead. You were the servant of the law, of those processes, in bondage to them, hoping that if you do them right, you'll get what you want. But if circumstances show up contrary, then you start questioning yourself. Right? You're fearing it. You're in awe of it. Right? And then it goes on to say here, and the creditor has come to take my 2 children to be his slaves. Wow. Do you see it? When you see the law or the processes and the techniques as the source and supplier, you lose awareness of yourself as that source and supply. You're fearing that you will lose even what you do have. Do you see it? Now she's fearing she's going to lose even her 2 sons, representing that idea of those 3D physical manifested conditions or circumstances that you have manifested, that you do have. And they're going to be slaves. In other words, you're going to be in bondage to those conditions, right? So she's fearing now that the creditor has come to take my 2 children to be his slaves, in bondage to those 3D circumstances. 2 children representing the duality of the 3D circumstances. Very powerful here. Fearing that you'll even lose what you do have. Right? This is powerful. Note here. So, and this is noted in Matthew 13:12. This is big. For whoever has, to him more shall be given. Whoever has what? Whoever has the awareness as being source, supplier, and the actual supply, the substance itself of everything that you want. and he will have abundance, right? But he who does not have that awareness of being source or supply or supplier. Even what he has shall be taken away. That was the fear, right? That her 2 kids are now going to be taken away because she's not recognizing herself as the source or the supplier. Remember when Elijah, your I am awareness, asked her, what do you have in the house? She says, this is a little jar of oil. Neville Goddard talks about only 3 drops of oil, right? Not recognizing within you, it's the source of everything. It creates this attachment to the law or to the processes and the techniques, right? The absence of what you want, the lack or loss of what you want. You feel widowed from everything you want, right? Widowed and separate from what you want in yourself as source. That's what the widow represents, right? So as it's saying in Matthew 12, for whoever has, to more shall be given, that awareness as source, and you'll have it in abundance. But if you do not have that awareness of yourself as source, that you're relying on the processes and the techniques and fearing the Lord or the law, fearing that you're going to get it wrong, then even what you have will be taken away from you. You'll have, right? Applying and practicing the law or the Lord without recognizing yourself as source and supply, as the actual supply itself. Like the widow, you cry out to the Lord or the law that the circumstances are getting worse, that my bank account's really low, the creditor has come to take my 2 children, right? What you have will be taken away. Remember, 2 represented the duality of 3D circumstances. Idea that taking the children to be slaves or to be in bondage to those conditions or the processes, right? You put yourself in bondage to all of that. When you lose sight as yourself as source, in other words, as the supplier and the supply or the substance of everything you want, right? You are the substance of everything you want. Remember, God creates from itself. Awareness creates from itself. Consciousness is conscious of itself. It's you being aware or conscious of yourself as all that is. So as you lose yourself as sight, as source, the life you want and desire, you feel like you're in bondage, a slave to the apparent worsening conditions. Like her 2 sons being taken away to be slaves. Right? You feel like you're in bondage to those conditions. Elijah, your I am awareness of being, right? The prophet Elijah representing your I am awareness of being is always answering. Remember, he answers the widow, what shall I do for you? When she calls out, says, my husband died and I'm left with all these debts and so forth. What should I do for you? This is similar in the New Testament when they talk about the healing of Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus meaning the blind beggar, right? The blind beggar. Jesus, your I am awareness is answering you. As Bartimaeus cried out to like the widow crying out to Elijah or your I am awareness, just like Bartimaeus crying out, right? You have the widow and you have the blind beggar, right? Both lacking that spiritual sight or insight, right? What do you want from me to do for you? As Jesus, your I am awareness answers. Just like Elijah said, what shall I do for you? Jesus in the New Testament, I am awareness. Remember, the metaphysical representation of Jesus is your I am awareness. What do you want me to do for you? Ready to restore your sight and perception as source, as supplier and supply of all that you want. What do you want me to do for you? I'm ready to restore that insight or that sight or that knowing that you're source, that you're supply, that you're the supplier. This is in Mark 10:51. Very powerful. Elijah, remember, representing your I am awareness, your own very own imagination, asks, tell me, what do you have in the house? Now he's asking her, okay, what do you have in the house? In other words, look within yourself. What do you have as source, as supplier, as a supply? Not out there, not where it is not. You're looking for the money and the love and the health and the well-being where you don't have it. Right? Out there, you're looking out there where it doesn't exist. It exists in you. Right? You're looking for what you don't have as opposed to looking for what you do have. The love that you do have, the money that you do have, the health that you do have, the well-being that you do have, that's within you. right? Remember, to whoever has, to him more will be given. Not just to the money, love, health, and well-being that you do have, but you as the substance, as source, as supplier of all that you are or have. That's the absolute faith of a mustard seed. Not a small amount of faith, but complete faith. The complete faith or substance as source. Remember, faith is the substance of things hoped for, right? Go, your faith has made you well. This is what Jesus said to Bartimaeus, the blind beggar. And immediately he regained his sight. In other words, that perception's there. You know yourself as source of all of that. Whew. Very powerful today. Like the widow and the widow's oil, you look around at the nearly empty bank account, the 3D party with your specific person, the extra weight that you want to take off, maybe the skin condition of the physical appearances, maybe a feeling health issue. And you say, I have, or I am not, nothing in the house except a jar of oil. 2 Kings 4:3, that's what the widow says. I have nothing in the house except a jar of oil. Elijah asks, what do you have in the house? Right? Your source. Just a little empty jar of oil. I think Neville Goddard mentions 3 drops in his teachings. You as source, you as supplier. You're saying you have nothing. You're saying, I'm not source, I'm not supply, I'm not the supplier, I'm nothing. You empty yourself of those assumptions, of that lack and non-fulfillment. That's why Elijah says, go and borrow some empty vessels. Right? Fill those vessels from within. From who you are, right? With that little drop of oil, if you remember in the story, he says, pour from that jar and keep pouring. Vessel after vessel, filling the vessels with that little 3 drops of oil, whatever was in that jar. Filled up until the widow is out of vessels. That source would have kept pouring. Based on your demand, source keeps providing to you. But if you don't see yourself as that source, if you don't recognize that source within you, how little it might feel, that supply that's already within you, even with that little bank account or the little circumstances in your life, within of all of those is everything. Right? And in Scripture, in this particular, in the widow's oil, it says borrowed vessels. They're like borrowed thoughts and assumptions from outside circumstances. Right? You go borrow vessels from your neighbors. But then empty them. Because you're borrowing thoughts and assumptions from the outer world. Those are borrowed thoughts and assumptions of what you believe is possible. Instead of looking at what's already within you as possibilities. Right? Your source. Fill the vessels from within, from what you do have. You as source, you as supplier, you as the supply itself, as the substance itself. Very powerful lesson today. Now imagine, now assume, now affirm your new life and your new you from who you already are, from what you already have. Now knowing yourself as source, now embody those processes. Right? Even while surrounded by 3D conditions that appear otherwise. That's why in 2 Kings 4:4 and 4:5, Elijah says, and you shall go in and shut the door behind you and your sons, and pour out into the vessels until there's not one vessel more, and the oil stopped. Wow. So she shut the door. You go into your imagination, you assume it, you affirm it. Right? You shut the door behind you. Even while surrounded, remember the 2 sons were there helping her. Even while surrounded by the duality of physical conditions, of circumstances that imply otherwise. You keep pouring that little bit of oil. There's a miracle in that oil. It keeps going until there was not one vessel more. Until there was no more demand for it. And the oil stopped. But it didn't have to stop, and it never stops. Just like the 3 kings in the desert dying of thirst. And the prophet says, go dig a ditch, dig a trench, and the water will be there. Because the water's already there. You got to prepare to receive it, to accept it. right? Empty your vessels of all those, empty the vessels of all those thoughts that you've borrowed from others, and see yourself as that inexhaustible source of all that is, right? Only limited by your own demand, what you can demand. God's always pouring that oil there, right? It's inexhaustible. Your recognition of yourself as supply makes it inexhaustible. Wow. Do that. That's how to manifest astonishing success in everywhere of your life. This works, right? This is powerful. I know this is one of my favorite ideas in terms of manifesting my life and everything I want. It's inexhaustible. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, thank you. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for liking and sharing and commenting on the videos. Thank you for being part of our Facebook group, the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors at facebook.com/groups/Be Something Wonderful, for joining our Instagram and Twitter pages at Tom Kearin, and our TikTok at Be Something Wonderful, or anywhere on social media you can find us at Be Something Wonderful or at Tom Kearin. And also for being part of our membership channel. Powerful, powerful live stream coming up this coming Sunday, October 27th, 2024. We're going to have a real great live stream. We're going to answer your questions that you have, that you've been sending to us at info@besomethingwonderful.com. And I'm going to chat on the live stream. Then a few days later, guys, I'm going to be broadcasting from Bonaire. I'm back to Bonaire for more scuba diving and more fun, but also to be with you every day, as I always am, right? Creating this an amazing reality. After I come back from Bonaire, we're going to move into a little bigger studio. We're going to expand a little bit. And then I'm going to be in Colombia for a month, in Medellin. And then towards the end of the year, you're going to see me broadcasting from Salt Lake City, or from Park City, where we're going to do some snowboarding and have some fun. But I'm going to be with you the whole time. Creators, with great love, with great light and infinite gratitude, this is Tom Kearin here in the studios of Be Something Wonderful. Until next time, we'll see you soon.